Everything that I spent my entire adult life doing came crashing down in an instant. And I don't regret it.
What?
The lessons that I learned in that bankruptcy, it humbled me so much. I'm grateful for it. And it was tough, but I am who I am today because of that.
You're basically telling me that you would rather have that outcome than be a multimillionaire running around with a huge ego.
Absolutely.
That's the most valuable thing on earth. The work of the heart and the truth that comes out of it is the only thing that sets you free. No amount of money is going to give you that clarity. So many people I meet right now are having these confrontations with their higher self, with the parts of them that are not fully aligned with their soul's desire, and are being continually asked, what do I do with this dissonance? What do I do with this pain? What do I do with this longing? You know, these yacht experiences that we're going to be running in Turkey and Greece have the potential to be very potent catalysts for transformation for people who are at various stages of this journey.
The amount of transformation that's possible in a highly curated, well-designed experience, it's so incredible and so beautiful.
Healing on land is one thing, but on water, it's like magnetized to another level. Consciousness seems to be amplified in the presence of water. We don't even know what it means to be human yet. Hey, so get this. You know we're doing this crazy pilgrimage from Stonehenge to Giza, right? Well, we have a very special and unique opportunity for 108 people to go on a yacht retreat from Turkey to Greece, visiting some of the most sacred and holy ancient sites of these two beautiful countries, exploring ancient wisdom, emerging technology, and modern science with Professor Carl Hayden Smith, pioneer of hyperhumanism, founder of the Museum of Consciousness, and professor of media at the University of East London. Carl was recently featured on the Aubrey Marcus podcast. Do check out that episode if you haven't already. And he's going to bring his entire wealth of experience of navigating altered states of consciousness and producing altered traits using something called holotechnica. Now, we're not going to go super deep into hyperhumanism. We have an episode on this already. In today's show, we're going to speak with Brady Hedlund, a serial entrepreneur who is on a journey to create immersive experiences of transformation for people to become their highest selves. Now, Brady really is the key piece of this puzzle. He's the whole reason why we have this yacht retreat in the first place. The way we met at Gathering of Tribes was absolutely wild, and the way this has come together has been very orchestrated and very clearly divine. Now, for me, this isn't about getting a bunch of rich people on boats and having a nice time. I started doing this work because I had visions for years about hosting ceremonies on boats with Israelis and Palestinians. This was even before the whole October 7th madness that has unfolded the latest series of wars. I have been seeing visions of the sons and daughters of Isaac and Ishmael coming together as a single family, moving through the trauma that was passed down to them for generations, with the support of a broader community, with the support of water, and with the support of ancient sites outside Israel and Palestine. So if you are Israeli, or if you're Palestinian, or if you have friends that are in this space willing to do deep reconciliation work, please do tune in and let us know. On the other hand, if you're a philanthropist and are willing to buy seats for Israelis and Palestinians to cover visas, travel costs, and support radical transformation, please do tune in. Let us know if you resonate, and we would love to speak with you. So without further ado, here's a conversation with Brady Hedlund, a deep journey into his life story, his travel company, his collapse during the pandemic, his resurgence into the new earth on the other side, and now these immersive experiences that we are co-creating together. Now remember, we got 108 seats left. We're releasing tickets in tranches. The prices for these are crazy cheap at first, and they will go up dramatically. So if you want in, get your tickets now. We'll see you on the other side. Peace. Yeah, brother, it feels like we met in such a beautiful circumstance, and I almost want to drop into that space briefly and then turn the conversation towards you and your journey and how you got to this place where you are today. I feel as though the more I learn about you, it seems like your journey is a little microcosm for what so many people around the planet are going through. And I'm curious what nuggets of wisdom you've had along the way, and also super stoked to talk about the yacht retreats that we're doing together. But for me, I was, my first real proper festival at Gathering of Tribes. And we'd been in the same space, at the Village Builders District. I saw you around, And then all of a sudden, this connection with your former business partner and this vision of hosting yacht retreats with Palestinians and Israelis came through, and it turned out like, oh, you guys host yacht retreats. What's going on here? Like, tell us about this. Where were you at that point in your life when we met back in September? What were you going through? And yeah, paint me a little bit of a picture in terms of our first encounter.
Yeah, well, it was at the Gathering of the Tribes, which is a festival slash conference around regenerative community building for the most part. I was actually just coming out from hosting 2 retreats in Croatia, and I was kind of like on a high, but also a little bit energetically drained from being in host mode for 2 weeks, which, yeah, requires a lot of energy and space holding. And at that point in time, I was just gearing up to move to Costa Rica to start a very large development in Costa Rica. And so being at that conference around regenerative building and gearing up to do this amazing project in Costa Rica. So I was kind of on a high, really excited about life. And it's been a dream of mine to do a regenerative community for probably 5 or 6, maybe even 7 years now. And so being in that space, being inspired by so many other community builders and people doing similar things, it was really super inspiring to see that this is a movement happening and there's so many other people that are on this train. So it was a great place to connect with you. Let's say that.
And it seems like there's so many people in the field who are trying to get their friends together, trying to get land, trying to build community. And yet, so few people really know how to build community.
Hmm.
And I think in my own lived experience, I've been continually surprised how hard it really is and
Hmm.
how easy it is to just run away when things get hard, and how much we need to learn about conflict and relationships and land and soil and water systems and renewable energy. Like there's a lot of great ideas of living in community, but when you put your hands in the soil, things suddenly start feeling differently. I'm curious to get a taste of what your journey to this realization that you want to live in community, you want to be on the land, you want to be in harmony with nature. What was your path to this point like?
Yeah, it's been a long journey. I spent 15 years of my life traveling pretty much full time. I would say in those 15 years, 90% of it was in a different place every week. And
Dude, that's nuts.
insane.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this desire for grounding while also living a unique life and having different people coming through and creating a dream life. Because in some ways, I was living this dream life, traveling the world, meeting new people, and having these unique experiences. But at a certain point, it wasn't really sustainable anymore, and it wasn't really,
Mm,
it's
mm.
hard to maintain my health and stay really like grounded and centered when jumping on airplanes and figuring out where I'm staying next week and everything that comes along with travel. And
Yeah,
so I was like, well, how can I create this life where I'm still engaging with amazing people and living this quote unquote dream life, but in a more grounded way where I can be more centered, I can be more focused. I don't have the distractions that happens with travel.
yeah.
And so I opened up a co-living space in Nicaragua. We called it Nomad Life. And this was probably about 8 or 9 years ago.
Yep.
And it was kind of at the beginning days of the digital nomad scene, and there wasn't a lot of co-living spaces. It was kind of at the beginning of this trend, let's say. And I had that co-living space for 2.5 years. It was really amazing, super fun. But what I realized is a couple different things. One, I was always at the whim of the owner of the property because we were just renting the property. And so the owner could change his mind at any time, and we had to renegotiate multiple times. And there was just a lot of stresses in regards to like the ownership of the property because we weren't the owners. We didn't have that safety and security to know that we could actually continue doing this long term. And the other thing at that point was there was almost too much turnover. People were coming for a week, for 2 weeks. And it was just like constant new people all the time, which for me was a little bit too much. And it was like, okay, how can we have a little bit more balance where there's more longevity in the people that are coming so that it doesn't feel so transient. And it got to a point where I was like, I don't really want to invest my time and energy in meeting a new person if they're going to be leaving in a week. Like I wanted more depth. And so the idea of creating more of a longer term living community space where we're going deep, we're building long-term friendships and relationships and really building something together that felt a lot more in alignment. And so that's kind of where it all started. It got inspired by that. And unfortunately, in Nicaragua, they experienced some major civil unrest, and we had to basically. I was somewhere else in the world at the time, and I got a call saying, "Brady, like people are being murdered on the streets. Um, People don't feel safe here. We need to do something about this." And so I had to fly to Nicaragua in a day's notice. I got pulled over at gunpoint on my way to the property, and I had to basically say, okay, we're packing up, we're going. And we left within 24 or 48 hours. And
Whoa, whoa,
2 days
whoa.
after we left, the town that we were in got blockaded out. The power went out. All of the grocery stores ran out of food. And people were like in this complete lockdown. So that was the end of that era. So
Because of cartels? Is that who came in?
So what happened was there was some students that were protesting against I think it was like some sort of a pension rule that Ortega, the president, made. And the president ordered for them to just get shot. And they just opened fired on these protesters. And that created more protesters, and that created them shooting at more protesters. And it just turned into like a whole civil war.
Whoa, dude. Wow. Wow. You got out of there just in time.
Yeah.
What a wild experience to go from traveling around the world, having amazing experiences, place to place to place to place to place, wanting to ground and build longer term community, feeling the same kind of transient nature, and then getting blasted with that. What did you do next?
So we went down to Costa Rica, and I actually found another property down in Costa Rica. And so we kind of just shifted the brands to a new location in Costa Rica. And that lasted maybe, if I can remember correctly, about 6 months. And then again, there was some challenges with the owner of that property. And so we just decided
Interesting.
to shift out of that. So
Thus the need for ownership in all of this, hey?
ownership or deep, deep trust and alignment with the
Yep.
owner.
And it seems like you've been very resourceful and entrepreneurial in all of your endeavors. You obviously built a travel company, which I guess facilitated a lot of your own travel experiences. What's been your kind of modus operandi through all of this? Do you just build companies to enable you to do what you love? Or did you have a kind of background in tourism and hospitality? Like, how have you approached making money whilst pursuing all these endeavors?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been fairly entrepreneurial growing up as a kid, and my entrepreneurial endeavors usually were based on what I was passionate about, or how can I find a way to do something cool and either make money on it or not have to pay for it myself. So I was always doing different things. I was like running a bar in my friend's basement when I was like 16 years old and
Yeah,
having
boy.
little parties and doing all sorts of things. Like I got involved in pub crawls when I was like 17. For me, it was like, how can I have fun? How can I enjoy life? And how can I make money while doing it? And
The grand
uh,
inquiry of our time, right?
yeah, the funny part is the company that I built was called Life Before Work. And so it was essentially
Mm.
the theme was to choose life and not get caught in this work hamster wheel.
Mm.
And eventually I ended up somewhat getting caught in that hamster wheel because the company grew so much.
What
I
a
just ended
paradox.
up overworking. And so it's interesting how things can unfold in that way.
Totally. I know the like, I want to live a regenerative life, so I'm going to build a company to regenerate the. Wait, how does this actually end up working in practice? And where's balance in all of this, you know? And how much do you invest in the external world and making the world a better place versus just taking care of your own needs? You know, it reminds me of that. I think it's an adage of a Mexican man who was talking with some Westerners about like, yeah, I could work super, super hard for years and years and years and save up a bunch of money so that I can sit in this hammock and enjoy the beach every day. Or I could just sit in this hammock and enjoy the beach every day and like do that from the beginning, you know, like why
Uh-huh.
go through all this effort? And so I'm curious for you in this, where your inner fire and desire to create beauty and positive change in the world came from, because I feel like we all have different sparks. There's one thing to say live before work, but there's another thing to be really, I guess, connected to the deeper problems and the challenges we face as you're seeing the social, economic, environmental crises that are on the front lines in places like Nicaragua and Costa Rica.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always that balance. It's always finding that perfect balance between ensuring that our cup is full so that we can be resourced and we can show up fully. Because if we don't have the resources to eat well and to live well, then we're not going to be able to really do anything. So I think that's like the core. And I think there's a lot of people that have such big hearts and they want to do such big things and contribute so much. But oftentimes they're so focused on contributing that they forget to actually take care of their own needs. And
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
I've been on that journey myself and had different moments where that's come through. And I'm definitely, I would say, on the other side of that and have a lot of awareness of the need to make sure that my cup is full first before I can really, yeah, fully serve. And that's also a paradox because how do we define a full cup? When is enough enough? Do I need a
Totally.
$100,000 car to feel like I have my cup full, or am I okay with a simple car that gets me from point A to point B? And there's so many layers and nuances to it, so it's a big question.
Yeah, and I think the stories we tell about what we actually need do drive so much of that behavior. And I think there's a song recently that just describes, you know, the needs of a simple human actually lead to liberation. When you can be
Hmm.
satisfied with less, then you can be free from this entire, you know, tapestry of all these desires, which gets you hung up on sacrificing the now for the future.
Yep.
And I love how you've brought in the word service into this, because I feel as though service is really the kind of the end state and the fruits of any spiritual journey. Is the desire to give and to create beauty in the world and share it with others out
Uh-huh.
of a natural expression of what it means to be human. And, you know, when your cup is overflowing, here, I've got some extra drink from this, you know, taste this, enjoy it.
Uh-huh.
I wonder what your inner journey has been like in terms of your heart and, you know, your soul or your spirit, or the connection to intangible has been like throughout all of this, as you're trying to, yeah, balance taking care of yourself, creating businesses, having fun. What's that vector been like for you?
Yeah, well, as you were sharing that, one thing that came up that I've been exploring a lot lately is the drama triangle, the victim, savior, and perpetrator. And really looking at when I want to be the savior and where is that coming from? Because service is a really beautiful thing, and there can also be shadow in that if it's not coming from the right place. And if I'm being in service because I want to be a savior, then it could
Totally.
completely be actually amplifying this drama triangle and creating more victims because I want to be the savior for people. And so, yeah, I've been tuning in and really exploring, where does this desire for service come from? And is it coming from a grounded, centered place of authenticity? Or is it coming from a desire to boost my ego and make myself feel some purpose and meaning and make myself feel good about the things that I'm doing? And so it's it's a big inquiry, and I'd say I'm still in it. And yeah, again, it's like finding this balance of like, there is a selfish part of me that wants to create community because I want to live in community. And I think that's actually healthy to be
100%.
like, yeah, I
100%.
just want to create what I want. And
Yeah.
and there is some selfishness there. And at the same time, of course, I want to do it with integrity. I want to do it with the right people. I want to be regenerative. I want it to serve and actually be a model for a new way of living. And it's not only for this external thing, there's actually a selfish part as well. And being able to own that and speak to that and yeah, not have it hiding in the corner of like, yeah, no, like let's be a little bit selfish. Let's create something beautiful for ourselves.
Mm, mm,
And let's make sure that it's like within the means of what we actually truly need rather than this glamorous over the top thing. And so when it comes to like community, I like the word eco chic, where it's like it's beautiful, it's nice, but it's not over the top, and it's just really focusing on the natural environment and sticking with nature rather than gold plated toilets and all these things. It's like let's keep it simple, but let's make it beautiful at the same time.
yeah, and I think finding that balance in this day and age is something that everyone's trying to figure out. I struggled with this whole savior complex my entire life. At an interpersonal level in my family, I very much learned that I received the most love when I would not only step in and save the day, but do so in a way that was grand and extravagant. And in situations of high danger and high risk, it's like, oh, wow, like, that's when I really get this really good feeling in my brain. So I should probably reach higher and go more. And it's been such a long unraveling and unwinding to really break free from that pattern because it's quite addicting, the saviorist mentality, and it feels good to be needed and wanted, and having victims attached to you for, you know, whatever needs they have, yeah, can go unnoticed for a long time. And so I appreciate you surfacing that as a part of this inquiry of like work of the heart and work of the spirit, because I can very much relate to this. And you also offered very humbly that this is something you're still working through, which I am too. It feels like every time I break down this construct of saviorism, I feel like I reach a new level of integrity in myself and an interconnectedness with other people. And then there's always a situation somewhere waiting to give me a chance to grow more and to go deeper. And I
Uh-huh.
think in particular in community, and I don't know actually how much experience you've had other than the Nicaragua of like really living in deeply entrenched communities. But, you know, most of my adult life since I was 18, that was kind of the foundation of the life I wanted to live, was just like with a bunch of other people in a house or in several houses on some land, trying to do stuff together. And it's the perfect environment to surface whatever is unhealed in us. And it sounds great on the outside, but you will rub right up against your deepest unprocessed shadows with someone. And those people are your greatest teachers. And, yet it hurts the most. And so I wonder what you've been confronted with personally as you've been on this journey of trying to build community, really rooting and grounding yourself in a place to get your needs met as somebody who appreciates authentic relationships and, this groundedness. What have you seen as you've gone in this endeavor? Just curious, yeah, what kind of main lessons you've taken from these experiences?
Yeah, so I believe that the two greatest teachers that we have in life are our intimate relationships and the people that we live with in community. And those
Mm,
are
mm,
teachers, those are our mirrors. Like you said,
wow.
that's when our shadow comes up. That's when other people's shadows come up. That's when we start to see ourselves in other people. We start to see the things that we don't like about ourselves in somebody else. And, the list goes on. And so I think deep down inside, a that's a part of this human evolution that has kind of been lost, where, majority people in the Western world are living in their individual silos. And so they don't have the mirrors or the people to rub up against to actually look and see where are their areas to grow and expand. And I think the thing is that it's much easier to live alone because we don't have to look at ourselves in the same way that we have to look at ourselves when we're living in community or in partnership. And
Totally.
it's definitely not as easy to live with a group of people in community. Things come up, challenges come up, drama happens, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that that's what's missing in this modern age, is that most people are in these silos. And so I'm trying to think of some pieces that have come up for me, because that was your actual question of like what's come up for me in that. And I was living in Bali for about 4 years during the pandemic. Yeah, I guess the first things coming up is, as the pandemic started to happen at the very beginning stages, my whole business was coming crumbling down, and there was so much uncertainty about what is this thing, this COVID-19. There was so much unknown about it and so much fear around it, and the world was literally shutting down. And obviously none of us have experienced anything like this before. I noticed for myself this like masculine, like, I need to protect the people around me and like create security, and like we need to work together to find a safe place to live and ground, and make sure that the people around me are safe. And so it was really
Mm,
interesting to witness this part of me that was like, I kind of felt like there was moments where I was in this command center of like, okay, we gotta find a new place to live. We gotta do this. We gotta get food. We gotta do this. What happens if this happens? Where's the plan B? All these different things. And it was interesting just to notice how everybody in, because I was living in a small communal space of, it was a 5 bedroom villa in Bali. And there was 5 of us and then a few other friends that all kind of gathered together and was like, okay, what are we going to do? And it's interesting to witness, especially in times of challenge, let's say, like who shows up how, and what are the little nuances and the different characters that come out, the different archetypes that come out. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting to notice where I would prioritize, like who I would prioritize, and like you can't help everyone. There's only so many spaces in the next place, and all the little challenges that came up around. Well, who's going to stay? Who's not going to stay? Some people are going to fly out. Is that the right thing for them to fly out? And so, yeah, for whatever reason, that's the first thing that came up as you asked that question.
yeah, it's so interesting. I experienced a very, very similar COVID moment. I had built a Airbnb management company called The Good Host in the UK over a good 2.5 years, putting a lot of blood and sweat into this with a business partner, and lost 95% of our revenue in 3 days. And I had people from challenging backgrounds doing cleaning and turnovers who were very much dependent upon this cash flow. And so I had a really similar, okay, protect the ground. I'm with my family. We're in a house. We're in community. We've got all of our needs met. Like, everything's okay. But now what do I do? And how do I utilize this vehicle that I've built in order to take care of my other people? Because when you're running a business, the field is relatively large of people that benefit or oftentimes can even depend upon the revenue that your business generates for them. And for me, it was, the single greatest catalyst for my inner transformation, that whole journey, that whole experience, both living in community during lockdown, raising children, having people come to us as a safe haven and navigating those relationship dynamics, but then figuring out what to do with my business and my own time, my own emotions, my own attention. And I wonder if we can look under the hood a little bit in terms of like, what did you build? What was the venture that suddenly came crashing down? And what did you do with it? And how did that, reflect upon your own inner journey of who you were at the time and who you were becoming through the pandemic? Curious if you can unfold that a little bit.
Well, I have goosebumps running through my body right now, so I can tell that it's potent. It's definitely probably the most pivotal point in my life, I would say. I spent 13 years of my life building a travel company called Life Before Work. I started it when I was 19 years old. It was a reflection of my 19-year-old self. It was adventure, party, fun. We had a team of 50 people at its peak, and we were operating in 18 different countries. And I
Wow.
really committed my entire life to this company. Like I literally, like nearly every waking moment, I was really so committed. I made so many sacrifices, and to see it all come crumbling down, like kind of similar to you, within a week, our revenue went to zero, and we were doing multiple seven figures. And so it was just like everything that I spent my entire adult life doing came crashing down in an instant. And it humbled me so much and taught me so much that it's funny because I was actually offered a very large amount of money to sell the company about a year prior. And
Oh.
and I refused to sell because I was so committed to my team, and I knew that if I sold it, the team would be at risk, and there's no guarantee that they would keep their jobs. And like, I was actually energetically out already. Um, I had shifted a lot and grown a lot and was no longer aligned with party focused travel. And so I had already even stepped down as CEO of the company about 6 months prior. And so in some ways it didn't hurt as much because I wasn't actually like completely gung ho. This
Yeah.
is my passion. This is my purpose. Like, I'm
Still.
losing everything. But like from a financial perspective, it was, you know, I lost everything.
But you're basically telling me that you built the company since you were 19, made it to multi-million dollars, were already resigned to moving on to different things, and you turned down an acquisition because you wanted to take care of your people.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened and you lost everything anyway.
And I don't regret it
What?
because I was on such a high and my ego was big, 19 years old, first, more or less first business, not instant success, but
Sure. You
like
were doing it though.
I was doing it, and I I was on a high. Life was good. I was traveling the world. My ego was massive.
Wow, bro.
And
Wow,
so
bro.
if I would have sold the company and gotten millions of dollars, then my ego would have still been way up here. And so the lessons that I learned in that bankruptcy, in that collapse, in that massive humbleness, discovering how much of my self-worth was related to being successful, discovering how my belief around being worthy in relationship is related to how much, me being successful. All of these massive life lessons came through because of that. I'm grateful for it. And it was tough. It was
Wow,
not pleasant,
bro.
but I am who
Wow.
I am today because of that. So,
So you're saying that you are actually grateful that you went bankrupt, you had your ego entirely decimated, that you realigned yourself. You would rather have that outcome than be a multimillionaire running around with a huge ego.
absolutely. And of course there's, there's obviously times where I question that, and naturally. But ultimately, I mean, I am the person I am today because of that, and I don't think that I would be as good of a human being as
Yeah,
I am today because of that. And so,
it's huge, bro. Wow,
yeah,
what an honor, man. What an honor. I appreciate that. And you must have done some serious work to get through that, because when I went through my massive ego death, decimation, I am my startup, I am my success, I am my balance sheet, I am this, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a startup founder, and then all of a sudden, getting divorced, kids are gone, have to go on sabbatical because I'm so wrecked and I need time and space. It's like, okay, well, who am I? And, out of that place of nothingness comes what's true.
hmm
And that's the most valuable thing on earth. The work of the heart and the truth that comes out of it is the only thing that sets you free. No
yeah,
amount of money is going to give you that clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, like, you can't buy these experiences. You can't buy this transformation. You can't buy this journey. Like, people try all over
Mm-hmm.
the world. They're trying to go through that death and rebirth process. But, it's a unique combination of external and internal forces that churn us through. And yet, it seems like the pandemic did this for a lot of us. And now
For
here
sure.
we are on the other side, starting to build with new sense of self, a new sense of interconnectedness. What got you through this?
To be honest, I was so held in this process. Of course, it was challenging and it brought up a lot, but
Yeah.
luckily I was in Bali, and the pandemic was just like, it was such a unique set of circumstances. I was literally $350,000 in debt, going bankrupt, like completely done from a financial perspective,
Oh,
like everything.
dude. Oh.
And this unique opportunity arose where all of these properties in Bali are now empty and the country is closed for 2 years. And so my desire to create community just became a lot easier because the availability for venues and incredible villas just opened up massively.
How
And
interesting.
so I was going through this massive financial collapse, and I found multiple throughout the 2.5 year process.
Mm.
I lived in, I think, 4 or 5 different wedding venues, living in the honeymoon suite, um, creating community and having my friends and amazing people come and live in these incredible venues.
Oh,
Um,
bro.
and so it was just like the cosmic joke of being so broke and so shattered, but like having everything I could like I was living better than I had ever lived before. And it was just like it was such a beautiful lesson of, this idea of money and this attachment to money and all of these things. It was just like it just showed me that I'm so held and I'm so supported, and that
Totally.
like money is one piece, and even without money, like there's still so much that's available and possible. And so yeah, it was a really, really interesting, unique opportunity where I felt like I needed to hide. Like I didn't
Mm.
post anything on social media because I was like, if the government sees the life that I'm living, they're gonna go, "There's no way this guy's bankrupt. He's hiding money somewhere."
He's hunting in a penthouse in Bali with his dopest friends.
So the
Wow,
main the
man.
main villa that I was living in, I was living in it for free because of the arrangement that I made with the owner, and I was renting out the remaining 9 rooms, and we were in total, I think we were paying $8,000 for the whole villa. And when COVID ended and the borders opened back up, they were renting it out for $78,000 a month.
I was thinking
And
10x.
so
Easy.
and so that puts it into perspective of like just the shift during COVID.
That's so interesting. It reminds me of Jesus the Nazarene in Capernaum is visited by this super wealthy guy. And he's like, done everything. Like, what can I do to experience the kingdom of heaven? He's like, sell everything you own. And the guy walks away just so depressed and so deflated because he has so much to lose. And yet, it is in these states when we have it all that we actually have the opportunity to be most liberated and most freed by discovering the abundance that comes with not having anything. And it's so interesting how your life typified this in the pandemic, and how you also allowed yourself to experience the abundance. Because a lot of people would have just hidden in a hole and wouldn't have had that relationship with the property owner and rented out the rooms and made something work. Like, I want to encourage and really recognize that resourcefulness and that resilience that you had to keep putting one step in front of the other. Because I think in my own journey, when I hit rock bottom, sometimes I almost enjoy wallowing in it for whatever reason. It like feels good to be miserable and like not accept the gifts that come. but it really sounds like you went through it, and I guess the bankruptcy proceedings went through, and now you're rebuilding your life on the other side. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, the bankruptcy went through, I don't know, 2 years ago, give or take. Yeah, it's interesting that you share that, because what comes up for me is what I think is also another little shadow part for me is I think there is a place for wallowing in that. And
Yeah.
there's magic in that, and there's potency
Yeah.
in that. And it's a blessing and a curse. It's something it is also very powerful, but I think I bypass a little bit, and I'm always like, if something bad happens, I'm like, okay, like something bad has happened. How can we handle it? We can either like be down about it, or we can just move on and find a solution. And I do that in lots of aspects of life, which
Mm,
does
mm,
create a level of resiliency, but it also doesn't allow me to fully feel the pain, feel the
yeah.
challenge,
Yeah.
feel the depth of whatever magic is actually coming through, because
Yeah.
these points in our lives that bring us to our knees, most often those are like the greatest gifts that we can have, because they
Most
show
valuable
they
moments.
enable us to see, you know, why did I create this situation in the first place? And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
what is within me that is creating this scenario?
Totally.
And so I'm in this process of like, okay, how can I stay resilient and not get too deep into the wallowing and the depression,
Mm,
while at the
mm.
same time actually feeling the feelings, moving the emotions through my body, and fully getting the wisdom that is trying to come through those experiences.
Totally, bro. Totally. And I think for me, this is why have so appreciated working with psychedelics in a ceremonial setting, and also having alone time in nature and music also, because there's
Mhm.
this kind of melancholic tone that creates such a beautiful container for expression for me personally that I can't access anywhere else.
Mhm.
When I'm in my high of highs, like what I create is a different feeling tone, a different resonance. And, in my lowest of lows, it was really like basking in the pain that allowed me to start singing and creating music. And it forced me to create something tangible that I could then reflect back upon myself and sing almost as a mantra into my own pain for my own healing.
Mhm.
And this is where I really felt like I took the black petrol gasoline of my wounds and was able to alchemize it into this incredibly potent spark of love, because I gave myself that space and that time to just be in it and to immerse myself with it. And, there were 100,000,001 reasons not to do that, because that's what I did my whole life. I didn't give myself that space.
Mhm.
And so I think it's beautiful that now things like sabbaticals are becoming more common, because really, for me, it took me months, man. Like, it wasn't a sort of quick thing to actually allow my nervous system to settle and disintegrate the whole construct, and to really truly experience these darker emotions was something I'd never done before. And I think a lot of people haven't done,
Mhm.
especially those who have had the benefit of privilege and, the opportunities that give us sometimes an upper hand in society, and good education and entrepreneurial thinking. And so I think this is a really interesting a pattern for humanity, and also for men, who are going through these challenging times and navigating this, and figuring out, like, what do I do with it and how do I transform it? And I think for me, this is also one of the reasons I've been so excited to step into hosting retreats, and actually really stepping into this path as a psychedelic facilitator, both combining the clinical Western side and the evidence-based perspective on catharsis, healing, and then bringing in the more rooted, grounded, indigenous ways of working with spirit and with music and with medicine, in community. And I think, these yacht experiences that we're going to be running in Turkey and Greece have the potential to be very potent catalysts for transformation for people who are at various stages of this journey. Because I don't know about you, but I feel so many people I meet right now are having these confrontations with their higher self, with the parts of them that are not fully aligned with their soul's desire, and are being continually asked, what do I do with this dissonance? What do I do with this pain? What do I do with this longing? And I'm curious for you, like how you see these yacht retreats that we're going to be hosting in the context of your own journey and the journey that people broader afield are going through. How do these puzzle pieces fit for you?
To me, it comes down to experience design. And, I've on my journey, not only have I created a ton of experiences through the travel company and through all sorts of different experiences that I've created, but I've also attended so many different styles of experiences, retreats and seminars, and like you name it. I've gone through a very, very big journey around doing all sorts of different things, and the amount of transformation that's possible in a highly curated, well-designed experience is just it's so incredible and so beautiful.
Mm,
And, it's been really amazing to witness the shift in me of, first creating these experiences that are very much, for lack of better words, let's say a little hedonistic. It's just about
mhm.
fun, adventure, travel, and with very little like intentionality behind it. And then, fast forward 10 years, starting to go into my own journey around it, and then experiencing all these different powerful, meaningful experiences, being transformed, being expanded, and then wanting to bring that into my company, into the travel experiences that I was doing. And I went through a whole journey trying to transform the company into a personal development company. And it was just really, really
Super
challenging
interesting.
because the whole company was based around adventure, party, and fun, and nobody else had experienced what I had experienced in all these different transformational retreats and coaching and all these different things. So it had been something that I'd really been wanting to do for a long time. And then COVID came and wiped out the company. And so we just did our first yacht retreats this last summer. And it was so incredible to witness,
Wow.
like, just the container on a yacht is so unique because you like, for a lot of the time throughout the day, you're sailing, you're cruising to different places, and so you are literally, like, trapped on a yacht with all these amazing people, and it's such an intimate space, and
Mm,
so
mm.
to witness how close people got, how deep people went, like, there was massive, massive cathartic, life-changing experiences that people had that I was like, whoa, I didn't even like it exceeded my expectations of what's possible. And so, and I know with you and your experience and all the people that are coming to help facilitate and support on these experiences, I know that it's like the potency and the power that's going to be available and possible on such a unique container. Like it's so incredible to like I get goosebumps just thinking about what's possible.
Yeah, I can imagine how transformative it would be. I've obviously never actually done a retreat on a boat before, but I'd love to rewind a little bit and unpack from my journey where this vision came from and like how it tied to our first meeting at Gathering of Tribes. Because it was such a special moment in that I was sharing this story with my friend Grace the very second that you and Jess came into the room. And then I was like, oh, you guys do yacht retreats. It felt very, synchronous and ordained. So I'll rewind back to December 2022. I had 2 weeks off very uncharacteristically because I'm normally in founder mode. I'm just building all the time. I try and take like a week off over Christmas, but things fell into place. I had a couple weeks off. And on December 21st, my ex-wife's birthday, I suddenly got a fever for like half a day. And I went upstairs. I never watched Netflix, but opened up Netflix to just relax and chill into this fever. And I ended up watching the mini documentary series, How to Change Your Mind, the Michael Pollan series. And I hadn't been using psychedelics at all. I had a really bad acid trip when I was 18, and I was terrified of this stuff. But something about the imagery and the words, how to change your mind, really stuck to me because I was struggling with mental health for years, and talking therapy never really did anything. And I watched this, the one on mushrooms. I don't know. Have you seen this series, the How to Change Your Mind one? Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And you know that scene with the like OCD dad who goes through his experience and he talks about what it's like having OCD with his kid and then his mushroom journey, and he has this intimate connection with this tree, and he's really liberated from this captivity of his broken mind through use of psychedelics. And I remember being overwhelmed with emotion, not because I directly had the same diagnosis, but I really felt a similar paralysis in my own mind relating to the loss of my children. And I closed the laptop and decided to just bawl my eyes out. I did some breath work. And in this breath work, I saw myself hosting a ceremony with Palestinians and Israelis. And I knew that I was the psychedelic facilitator for this. And I was very struck by this image. And I sat with it and ended up reaching out to a friend, Giles from Woven Science, and asking him if we can talk because I wanted to start walking into this space. And then for the next 3 months, I dreamt and had visions and saw repeatedly myself hosting retreats on yachts with Israelis and Palestinians. And I knew some of them were in the Nile, and I had 2 back-to-back bodywork sessions with my Reiki master, Julie. And then the second time I was like, okay, this is coming through really strong for the second session in a row. Like, I need to share this with you. And it turned out that she had been on a yacht in the Nile with this guy who runs a third wave internet company. And I knew who the guy was because it was the same
Christoph,
boat. Yes,
I've been on that boat.
it was the same boat I saw because I met this dude's business partner in East Denver, like a few weeks ago, and it was just astonishing to me how the field was bringing this vision into my body, that Julie was there as the Reiki master. She had been on this guy's boat before, and at the same time that Julie and I were having a session, Julie's business partner Eve was with Florian, Christoph's business partner, in Paris that very day. And it was just this like full circle constellation. And so I started listening and wondering, but like, I work in climate and crypto. Like, what is this? Where are these visions coming from, and what do I do with it? And for months, these visions were coming back, and I was talking to my therapist and trying to work through it, and she was helping me rationalize. And so for me, the idea of hosting 3 weeks of yacht retreats in Turkey and Greece, visiting some of the original sacred Christian sites and the early Greek mythological sites with a group of people whom I would be super moved if we can find a way, a philanthropist out there, to support tickets for Israelis and Palestinians, to support the visas, to do whatever we need to create a healing container, not just for individual pain, but collective pain, I think has immense prospect. Doing healing on land is one thing, but from my experience on water, it's like magnetized to another level. Consciousness seems to be amplified in the presence of water. And I've started stepping in, doing these water ceremonies after I had begun doing this work with Grace. And I'm so curious how this is going to unfold, and also how you see what we're doing in contrast to the retreats that you've hosted, because of the way that this is fitting in with the broader pilgrimage vision. What's your kind of, I don't know, what's your vision for this that we're going to be doing together, these 3 weeks of yacht retreats? What do you see?
I mean, I see a lot of transformation, a lot of smiles, a lot of joy, and a lot of exploration, both outwards and inwards. And so naturally exploring different islands and different locations, and experiencing the beauty that that Greece and Turkey have to offer, but then also going inwards, doing different practices, different modalities to also explore our inner worlds and enable people to dive in and really explore what's alive inside, what is happening in our internal landscapes. And I feel like those two things together, as you mentioned, on water, it just creates a really, really unique combination of this beauty of outward and inward exploration.
100%. And I think working with the archetypal energy of Christianity, as well as Greece and all that the Greek people have offered Western society and the Western mind, provides such a unique canvas to explore both the inner and the outer. And doing this work with Carl Hayden Smith, for those who don't know, is the founder of the Museum of Consciousness. He's pioneering a movement called hyperhumanism that effectively believes we don't even know what it means to be human yet. And there are technologies, he calls them holotechnica, a huge range of technologies that can alter our states of consciousness and ultimately help us produce altered traits that really express the full capacity of our human potential. And we experienced hyperhumanism with Carl in this retreat in Portugal, and I was blown away at how powerful these modalities are because they're non-psychedelic. And yet the changes in consciousness are even more profound than some psychedelics. And yet it's much more grounded and more stable and safe and effective and doesn't have the volatility of the neurochemistry. And so I'm really curious to do this journey with Carl because he's going to have just come from this series of retreats at the pyramids in Egypt with some really, really brilliant people. Check out the episode with Aubrey Marcus. Carl Hayden Smith is an absolute pioneer. And I think it's going to be utterly fascinating to embark upon this voyage, going from Bodrum to these different islands in Greece, tapping into ancient wisdom, but also leveraging the most cutting edge pioneering healing methodologies, not just for ourselves, but for the collective. And I remember in one of our experience design planning sessions, there was a real spark for you once we flipped the switch into the ancient wisdom side. What was that, and what are you most excited to explore as we navigate these waters?
Yeah, so as we've been putting together the experience, what we discovered is this unique story that each location holds, whether that's through a Greek god or goddess, or a Greek philosopher, or a Turkish king. There's like these different archetypal energies that each of these places hold through history of what's happened in the rich, rich history of Greece and in Turkey. And so what we're playing with right now is how to create like the archetypal journey of embodying and exploring what the different characteristics of each island holds based on a particular archetype. And so each day will have a different theme and guide us through this journey of exploring the different types of archetypes that have played a big role in each different location. And it feels really exciting to be able to have this experience arc of going through this journey, understanding the different archetypes of the area and getting to play in those energies and understand what actually happened in these places and how is it relevant to each of us today.
Totally, man. Yeah, and I think for me, working with archetypes has been one of the most powerful modalities for me to understand my own mind and my own personality and what is me and what's not me. And, it's almost a shamanistic practice of working with these different energies in the field and playing with these different traits that are in the field of ourselves and of the collective and seeing how it feels to embody, the archetype of Persephone, or to really look at the story of Achilles, or to look at, the origins of the early church in Ephesus, or the state of consciousness where John was when he wrote the book of Revelation in Patmos, and navigating the impact of the apocalypse on our society throughout history and the fears that we hold as a collective as we look at what's happening in the Middle East, as we look at what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. And for me, I'm so excited to redeem these stories and these places and the shadows that haven't been integrated in our own psyches and bring them into a place of wholeness. Because for me, I was terrified about the end of the world for a long time. And the fact that we have the opportunity to touch in the soil of Patmos potentially in one of the 3 weeks, and to really feel the energy of this place where this man was stranded at the end of his life, having lived the most wild experience, having lived with the Christ, and then writing this final testimony of the second coming and the return with, deep metaphorical language shrouded in mystery to conceal it from the Romans. And the fact that we are now at this seeming kind of vortex in time where everything seems to be accelerating, and the prophecies of the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims and, the indigenous all seem to be coalescing into a single moment where it feels like humanity is at the tipping point, and then at the tipping point even more. And it's like, do we tip over? Or do we just keep rolling into this new phase of human consciousness with artificial intelligence and with, a globalized society that has more tools to co-create and to destroy than ever before? And so for me, I'm really grateful that I met you, because I never could have pulled this off on my own. I don't have the experience in navigating boats. I didn't even know who to call, but you were just like, yep, we've got a boat. Here's how it works. And I'm really excited to release these first tranches of tickets at a pretty wild and crazy price to just get this first, the next set of deposits on for the boat, and get this flywheel spinning of getting people excited about navigating through ancient wisdom in Turkey and Greece on a boat with 35 other people who are all doing the deepest inner work of their lives in some of the most beautiful Mediterranean settings on the face of the planet, and seeing what kind of magic we can make together. And yeah, I wanted to just say thank you to you for being this grounded presence, having run a super successful travel company and helping us pull together, bringing in Jenny, bringing in your whole wealth of experience. And yeah, man, it's been an honor, and I'm super excited to embark. Do you have any last words or thoughts before we close in terms of what we're gonna embark upon together?
I will close it with also a lot of gratitude and excitement. As I mentioned, this desire to create meaningful, life-changing experiences has been very alive within me. And you're creating the foundation for that to happen in this experience. And
Mm.
so, it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to co-create and
Mm.
to be able to bring this to life. And I feel the potency of it. I feel the it feels big,
Yeah,
and it's super exciting, and so super grateful and excited
nice,
to
man.
see what unfolds.
Nice, man. Yeah, and to have these 3 weeks in the middle of the pilgrimage from Stonehenge to Giza to get everybody on a boat to navigate these waters is going to be really special. And yeah, man, thanks for carving time out of your day. I know you got a lot of fun stuff planned there in Tulum with the friends. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side, brother.
Awesome, brother. Lots of love.
Take care, Brady. Peace be with you.
Thanks.